There we go.
There we go.
Thanks again, Kevin.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Inside Sports Talk. Johanna-Rosalye here with you, and we have our amazing co-host, Ed. How are you tonight?
Good evening. How are you?
Doing great. And we have PLR. How's it going?
The Suns are 2-0 in the bubble.
Isn't that amazing?
So that tells you how he's doing, right?
That's great.
Great feeling to have. And delighted to have our guest for this week. We have local broadcast talent, TV voice of the Phoenix Suns, and national radio play-by-play for the Dallas Cowboys, Kevin Ray. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Good to see some people that I've known for a long time.
Thank you for taking the time, and we're going to be talking a lot of basketball, football, a lot of stuff tonight. So
sounds good.
Yeah, we're loving how the NBA has kicked it off on just a few games in, and it's going well. Going into the bubble, it seems like the NBA has done it well. One of the few leagues that have actually been able to pull this off. So I want to, before we keep going in a little bit more into the NBA, I want to get your thoughts on that. We see how we're seeing the other leagues struggling a little bit, like MLB and NFL, which we'll go into a little bit later, but give me your take on it.
Well, I think that clearly there was a great deal of thought and calculation put into the planning by Adam Silver and those with the NBA. And we're seeing that kind of come to fruition day after day, week after week. They're a month basically almost into the bubble, and so far so good. The results have been exactly what they had hoped, maybe even better than they had expected. But by comparatively speaking, there were inherent challenges for Major League Baseball. Any sport that doesn't play in an indoor facility, you're already, dealing with a certain set of challenges. And for Major League Baseball specifically, I think what you're seeing there is they had an opportunity to create bubble cities. There are a variety of reasons that they chose not to. I'm sure maybe now in hindsight, they're wishing they would have maybe pushed harder for that. But I think what you're seeing with Major League Baseball isn't altogether surprising, because what it comes down to, one, you've got bigger rosters. You've got teams now traveling from city to city. But no different than we've all seen in society, it comes down to personal accountability and personal responsibility. And I think that's why you're seeing the flare up here over the last week to 10 days with Major League Baseball, because the NBA does have the bubble and they are in control of the bubble, who comes in and who goes out. You see a dramatic difference in the ability to truly control almost every aspect of the environment. And that's why it's been successful thus far.
When you talk about personal accountability, I read an article, Marlins CEO Derek Jeter kind of defended his players, saying, well, we didn't do anything bad when we were in Atlanta, when we played our two exhibition games. And he was basically kind of saying that all of our guys kept within each other and we didn't do anything bad. Yet it was still an outbreak among the Marlins team, which kept them in Philadelphia, which basically halted their entire schedule. So, I mean, what do you think about this whole Marlins situation? And now the St. Louis Cardinals are coming down, and there's other teams that are coming down. They're getting this bit of an outbreak on the COVID virus too.
Yeah, and look, you understand, and I guess in some ways appreciate the fact that Derek Jeter's trying to defend his guys. Makes sense for any, team executive, team owner to do that. And while there hasn't been anything specifically validated, and I haven't looked too long and hard at it, but I'm sure the three of you have heard the various reports. You've seen various things on social media about there was a handful of players who went to an establishment, we'll just call it. And
Yeah,
I don't think they were going there for wings. I don't think they were going there for wings.
Well, Lou Williams did. He said he went for wings, Kevin.
Well, he did. He got the wings and a whole lot more. And then just in the last couple of days, there have been some rumors swirling around the St. Louis Cardinals, and more than one player, probably less than 5, who may or may not have frequented a local casino. And that was my point about personal accountability. And I think it's why you may have seen and heard Rob Manfred, Major League Commissioner, be rather vocal and pretty pointed with his remarks to the Players Association and saying, look, we can only do so much. We can provide all the testing, we can provide all these things, but at the end of the day, it comes down to you as a professional being accountable, being responsible, and which means when you're in city XYZ, even if it's your home city, you can't go out. You can't be that public figure that you may typically be. No different than, look, for me, especially as we continue to get closer to these Suns games, I go to the grocery store, or if I don't have the groceries delivered, my stuff is, point A to point B. You just don't want to run the risk and put yourself into a situation or an environment that might, bring a higher rate of possibility of contracting this virus. And that's the challenge that Major League Baseball has. It's the challenge that the NFL is going to have if they're able to get the league up and running. It's certainly the challenge that college athletics is going to deal with. I mean, there you're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, for goodness sake, living on a college campus with all kinds of distractions and temptations right at their fingertips. So
with the accountability aspect of it, the NBA has, did it very well, bringing in the bubble and having accountability, a list of things players don't do, who comes in, who comes out, etc. And with MLB, we still don't know the facts for NFL, how that's all going to play out. But one of the things that's now happening because of what has occurred and having, players test positive, having canceled games, and so forth, they've implemented a compliance manager, or a compliance officer, I should say, for each team. So could that be something in a way of a right direction that could be benefit, being that they're not in the bubble like the NBA and WNBA?
Absolutely. And Major League Baseball has taken those steps. And I think a lot of people, are looking at the Major League Baseball situation and saying, well, why wasn't this thought of in advance? And it's easy to sit here and criticize as an armchair quarterback. Look, there's a lot of moving parts. And when you're talking about, a traveling party of probably 45 to 50 people going from one city to the next, granted you're there for 3 to 5 days. And because this virus, everything that we know and don't know is so fluid, I think it was one of those things that probably slipped by the wayside. And I guess in defense of Major League Baseball, they're probably thinking, well, look, we've managed to salvage a 60-game season. Surely you guys are smart enough and recognize how fragile this is. So you're not going to be dummies about this and put yourself into harm's way, because they're thinking they're dealing with adults. again, that's just, from my perspective, if I'm baseball looking through their lens, that's probably what they were thinking. It's like, surely we don't need to have basically a Corona cop is what you call them, is you can call him compliance officer, dress it up with whatever fancy term you want, but it is somebody to make sure that these guys are going from ballpark to the hotel and nowhere else, or they're getting food, it's being brought in, everything's being examined, and nothing else. And yeah, it's a huge, it's a big sacrifice for them. Sacrifice is a strong word because there are plenty of other people on our planet who have made greater and more significant sacrifices than these guys. But it's what they're quickly understanding for the sake of them getting to play their professional sport and being paid handsomely to do so. What you used to do in previous years, going to the ballpark and then going out clubbing afterwards, you don't get to do that in 2020. And because you are still dealing with some individuals who are, young, 21 to 25 years of age, there's that part of invincibility that I think a lot of kids, guys that age will have. And that's what Major League Baseball is now dealing with.
Okay, Ray, two things I think that helped the NBA out. One, they brought in teams that legitimately had a shot to make the playoffs. So everyone there had something to play for. So I think that took care of a lot of the issues that Major League Baseball is having. I think, and I'm not knocking the Knicks, but if you bring like the Knicks or the Bulls or the Pistons that would have no reason to be there, I think they may be more apt to break containment or break the rules. The teams that are breaking, like the Marlins, and just to be honest, they know they're not making the playoffs. So right. I think for them, the responsibility level isn't as strong because for the Yankees or for the Dodgers, they're going to make sure everyone is in line and every player is going to hold everyone accountable because at the end of the day, they think they have something to play for. I think some of the teams that are getting busted or not being in compliance or not having the quote-unquote snitch line, they just feel like we're going to get our checks anyway. What difference does it make? And I think maybe that has a little bit more to do with it, whereas everyone in that bubble, and I'll even use the Suns. They're a long shot, but they have nothing to lose. They're the most dangerous team there. And so They're playing loose and having fun. The Marlins, it really doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, and there's probably some degree of truth to that. It's unfortunate because you're taking what was and should have been a 162 game season into a 60 game season over the span of roughly 90 days, 98 days, something like that. And this is where you have to put your professional cap on, your professional ball cap. And look, the other advantage that the NBA had is they had 3/4 of their season played. So that in itself was a step ahead of Major League Baseball, which wasn't able to get their season started, for 2.5, 3 months. So there were some hidden advantages for the NBA. And I do think that to your point, it's why Adam Silver and the Board of Governors, as they looked, and they didn't want to leave everybody out of it. They wanted to try and figure out a way for all 30 teams. But at the end of the day, considering the circumstances that they were dealing with, looking at the best alternative, which was and is the bubble, they had to make a tough decision and, leave those other 8 teams out. So they don't have the luxury of being able to have some finality, some closure to their NBA season. And, to your point, it's unfortunate if anybody in Major League Baseball is taking that viewpoint because, look, it's a game, it's a season that quite frankly could have been taken away and still might be taken away if they continue to be reckless about their approach. But look, as we all know, in some ways it's a microcosm of society. You've got people who are, willing to mask up for the minimal sacrifice it is to walk into a grocery store and, put on a mask for 20 minutes. You take the mask off when you get out. But there are just some people that want to continue to defy the orders for whatever reason.